Everybody, it's Wes Hagen. I'm the winemaker for J.Wilkes Wines and the brand ambassador for the Miller Family Wine Company. Welcome to day drinking on Thursday, April 16th. As I normally do right at the beginning, I am just going to go check my feeds, make sure everything's looking good, and then I'll be right back. And as it's 4:48 right now, and we'll be getting going. Hey, Tom, I'm just going to check my feeds. I will be right back. I know that let's see. Actually, I think I've done this. I've done this about 22 days. So what I'll do is hang out and make sure, yes, Michelle's here, Nikki's here, John's here, everyone's here. So I'm just going to assume everything's looking good over both at the J.Wilkes Santa Barbara Wine Santa Barbara Facebook page, where we get the main feed, a little higher resolution, and over at the Wes Hagen feed for those people who just like to hang out on my page. And why could I tell you anything different? Kelly, welcome, and so glad to have all you guys here. Sort of at the beginning tonight, I don't know if you heard about Steve Arrowwood, Nikki. He passed from cancer, I believe, last night from Montemar Winery here in Santa Barbara. Super nice guy, kind of deadhead friend of mine. Both really love the Grateful Dead. I guess he had his cancer came back and he didn't tell anybody. So, well, his family knew, but it wasn't widely known. So slightly sad day, and we'll offer a toast to Steve. Interestingly, yeah, nice man, really, really cool guy. And you rarely find a guy like that who's like a really serious and good businessman, but also seems to really care about everyone around him. So we really, I spent at least 10 years probably making wine in the same proximity with him in Lompoc, California, and I just wanted to reach out and just tell everybody that he's missed, and will continue to drink and support his wines, and that the Santa Rita Hills won't be the same without him. He was incredibly supportive. He was incredibly likely to be at any event that we were ever at, and he always welcomed me with a smile, pat on the back, and a hug. So again, here we are. Yeah, me too, Christy. And thank you so much for coming in. And we are going to celebrate today the life of Steve Arrowwood, as well as I also learned that I'll protect her identity, but I guess you could find out, but our tasting room, our wine club manager at the Miller Family Wine Company, her father passed from COVID as well. And I found that out. And this is the first direct connection I have to a case that became fatal. So I now officially have a direct connection to someone who's passed from the virus, which makes me feel a little bit odd. My wife and I were talking about other viruses and other situations that we may or may not have lost a friend to or someone we knew, and there's not many. So it's getting to the point where we're all going to be affected in some way. And so as a result, we have to make sure that we take very good care of ourselves and very good care of each other. We're not going to linger on these tonight. We're going to have a fun show. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. But once in a while, it's good to start with a sobering moment and to say that how excited and how lucky we are to be breathing on a planet spinning 17,000 miles an hour through space, and more like over a million miles per second through the galaxy. And we feel like we're standing still unless we have too much to drink. And then in Vino Veritas, we realize we're on a planet spinning 17,000 miles around in space. That's the truth of it. Gravity is amazing. And how amazing it is. Oh, my printer finally decided to start printing the materials that I was hoping I would have for the beginning of the show. Yes, no doubt in my mind that Nikki and the Hargroves all hung out, and Eddie Gray's in the house. Thank you, Dominic. I appreciate that. Yeah. So we're all dealing with different issues, whether it's our kids not understanding how fractions work, our dogs being jerks, learning that sometimes having the opportunity to have time away from the house makes time in the house amazing. For me, as someone who is traveling up to 200 days a year and not sleeping in my bed more often than I was sleeping someplace else. This is the first month that I can think of that I have slept in my bed every night. And it is refreshing and wonderful, really refreshing and wonderful. And welcome, Mark. Good to have you back, buddy. I can see you standing there looking either at your phone or your daughter's iPad out by the pool in Sierra Madre, California, chilling and having a good time. Yeah. So I think what we're gonna do tonight, we've got about 7 minutes until the beginning. And here I am without a drink, but I'm certain, and Bill and I had a nice conversation about professional sports and basketball. Was it last night or the night before? My brain pretty much goes into hibernation after these shows. But it's always good to see friends coming in here, and how lucky that I am that I get to actually, as part of my job, do this. I'm forced by my job to day drink at 5 o'clock, which is barely day drinking. I know the comment is it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but it feels right with my lack of travel and my lack of face-to-face. I do find myself a bit more using FaceTime, calling people. I'm talking to probably my dad and my mom a little bit more often, probably my brother as well. So it is a time where we're all getting it was about basketball. And we'll talk. I'll try to keep my teams to myself on here, because I know there's people from all over the country, and once in a while from all over the world. But I think everyone knows that I grew up in LA, as did my parents, as did their parents, and some of my great grandparents as well. So, it was a year that it looked like, now I'm going to break my rule like I always do, that the Lakers were on a roll. The spirit of Kobe Bryant was, obviously showing itself all over the country, not just in the Lakers, but obviously he was a man and a personality that really drove a lot of people to excellence. And we were hoping that this was going to be the year that Kobe's spirit and a couple of damn good players were going to take the Lakers one ring closer to having as many or more rings than the Boston Celtics, dude. Come on. You guys are smart out there in Boston. You've got like Harvard, but you can't pronounce Celtic. We all know there's no such thing as a Celtic. I guess maybe they just love the pronunciation. Then again, how many lakes are in Los Angeles? So thank you, Minnesota. I always say something nice about Minnesota. Today, I'm just going to go ahead and say thank you very, very much for the Lakers. We really love them, and I think we're going to keep them. So it's all well and good. Cool. So we've got Phil Pierce in the house. Tommy Schultz down in Carpinteria enjoyed an Island Pale Ale. Is that like the Island Brewing? Is that like I think it's Island Brewing, right? I think Island Brewing is actually brewed in the Central Coast, even though it was originally a Hawaiian brand. But yeah, I like a couple of their beers. Who's the better Bosa brother? Well, you know that Joey's talking about coming to the 49ers. And if we could get the Bosa boys on the corners, Big Bear, Little Bear, hello. But Eddie, I don't know. I think you could argue Joey has more experience. Nick's been to a Super Bowl and lost. Could have had a better game. Not his best game, but all well and good. All right, so let us take a look. Yes, and Dominic had a winemaker question to start us off. And today's subject tweaked a little bit in case you didn't see it. And that has been tweaked to Viognier. And it'll be I always say it'll be a slightly shorter show, and then I go an hour. Yep, Island Brewery. And Bob's here too. And I'll get to your question in just a second, Dom. Would have lost to the Celtics in 7. Like the last time we played, Celtics were 1 ring since 1986, 1-hit wonder since the mid-'80s. Okay. And how many rings did you win that only took 5 playoffs games to get a ring? Not saying Red Auerbach wasn't a great coach, but I think we know who the most valuable team is. If you want to buy a team, how much you're going to pay for the Celtics and how much you're going to pay for the Lakers. I think that's, money talks, right? But here we talk about the Celtics because we and the Lakers because we love sport. And when I went to Boston for the first time, wearing my Lakers shirts just after our win, I think I was wearing a shirt that said, the Lakers are coming, or something like that. I was expecting Boston to be a little bit nasty about my Laker habit, and they questioned me to find out if I actually knew the history of my team. And when they found out that I actually had some passion and interest, the conversation was fantastic. So when I went to Boston, I expected to meet some kind of less than friendly fans, and what I ended up doing is sitting in an old bar, so old that California has nothing like it, and watching a Laker game until midnight with a bunch of Boston fans and having a hell of a time. So love Boston, love it as a walking city. I don't like to see the Celtics win. So and it seems the Sierra Wine guy is talking about Boston. One thing that does seem weird is not many Boston fans choose to live on the East Coast. You see a lot of New England fans all over the United States. And, for me, sure. I mean, if you represent and you say you love your city, I would ask you, if you love your city, why don't you live there? I happen to be exactly 50% halfway, and I've lived in Northern California and in Southern California. But I live pretty much exactly 3.5 hours from Staples Center and Levi Stadium. So it's pretty easy for me to say, not only do I love my team, but I live where my team it basically plays. California is the promised land, and I understand. What's up, Jerry Leonti? Speaking of Northern California, the gentleman who first introduced me through another friend to Primus and Ben Harper, way back before they were popular, so we could go see them in tiny little venues. As a result of that, I also got to see, who was it? The kind of like surfer guitar singer-songwriter Johnson. Why can't I remember his name? But he was in close cahoots with Ben Harper and ended up playing a record store gig in Claremont, California for about 25 people. Ben Johnson. Anyways, it'll come to me. Jack Johnson. Thank you. All right, only if you can park the car at the curb. And again, don't get me wrong, I love Boston. Last time I was there, my joke is I snuck onto the Harvard campus with a wine bag and snuck into a lecture, sort of movie style. And then when they found out who I was, I yelled, J.Wilkes hunting or something, and ran out. It's a horrible joke, but I try. You gotta flirt to have a good time. So, and Fred, welcome. I've got your wines. I was gonna actually taste them before or after, but I don't know, and I want to give you really, really honest feedback. And I didn't know if you would be comfortable giving this feedback to this many people. So, but I do plan on. Oh, good. And I do. Fred's a local guy. He dropped off some Viognier for me, and we're talking about Viognier today. And as a result, I'm going to be tasting some of his Viognier and giving him some hints. And I'm assuming, Fred, that Viognier is planted in your backyard in that little kind of enclosed area here in Santa Maria, California, in Orcutt. So I get to taste some Orcutt Viognier, and we'll talk a little bit about how we basically temperature influences Viognier and how Viognier changes from cool climate to warm climate. And it is 5 o'clock. It is 5:01. Welcome to Day Drinking with Wes Hagen. I am the winemaker for J.Wilkes and the brand ambassador for the whole Miller Family Wine Company. I've got so much stuff for you today. We're going to talk about Viognier. We're going to drink some wine. We're going to talk about the first J.Wilkes Viognier. We're going to talk about Paso Robles Highlands District, how it influences the flavor and character of it. And then we're going to, after we drink it and talk about Viognier, we'll answer some questions, and then on we go. We've tweaked the calendar just a little bit. So today, I want to make sure I give you the exact correct. So today we were supposed to be doing Pinot Blanc, but we are not. We are doing Viognier because A, I recognize that we didn't do Viognier yet, and B, the folks who are packing and shipping your orders, and Christy, I'm looking at you. Christy, I think it's the record, a total of 10 cases shipped since I started doing this. So try to beat that. Thank you. We are shipping so many damn cases that it's really changed the nature of our business. And as a result, getting together this mixed case of 2016 library wines that we found recently in the library, or if you didn't know, we were doing final warehouse because you can imagine we have some time in the warehouse to have one person go around and count all the cases. We found some cases we didn't know about. they were basically less than a pallet layer. Pallet layers are about between 14 and 16 cases, just depending on how you stack them. So we have under a pallet layer each of 2016 Zinfandel and 2016 Pinot Blanc. Now, Pinot Blanc is really, really, really good, as well as the Zin. We've talked about the Zin, we tasted it. So we're really excited. So we're going to offer a mixed case for $12.50 a bottle. So it's going to be, normally the Zin is 30 and the Pinot Blanc is 20. So we're basically going to be giving you almost 50% off a case. Basically you do, because we are not operating in a wholesale environment anymore. That's not true. Actually, we've been selling a decent amount of wine to a number of places that are either delivering or have an opportunity to somehow get that wine out. So we are looking at using DTC as we look direct to consumer. When we look at our wholesale market, we are trying to front load an exciting new DTC environment here at the Miller Family Wine Company. So good news, let you guys know before I pour a little of this wine, we talk about Viognier. The coupon code DD50 is still working and giving you 50% off Ballard Lane, Barrel Burner, and Smashberry. So $7.50 a bottle for every single one that I just talked about. $3.75 for cans of Smashberry, $3.75 cans of a delicious blended red, mostly Bordeaux varieties with a little bit of Rhone. And let's see, what else? Sonia's in the house. Hey, welcome. And we've got, I just saw David's here as well. And then I noticed, I promised, my funny brain almost missed Dominic's question, and then I'll finish. And then I'll just finish that, and I will get to this, Dominic. So still 50% off those. We went to $10 a case, basically shipping. So 0 to 12 bottles, $10 shipping, which is about half of our cost, including the box. And then 13 bottles, it goes to 20. So you want to go to 24. So making that case, sharing with your neighbors. I mean, how nice would it be to just drop a 6-pack of wine off? I've actually been going around dropping off the little flyer we have for the Miller Family Wine Company with a bottle of Smashberry Rosé to some of my neighbors to try to show them that I'm thinking of them, and giving them something to do with a note saying, basically if you don't drink, keep it and give it to someone who does after this whole thing. So it's a matter of community. So whether it's next door or whether it's going out over there, and then the cool thing is that. If you're in the wine club, if you're in the J.Wilkes wine club, which all you have to do is go over to the J.Wilkes website, sign up for the wine club, you won't even get a shipment until June. And suddenly you're getting incredible values. And from what I understand, if you are in the wine club and you log in as a wine club member, you still get 1 cent shipping on a case. You have to buy 6 bottles, but if you buy up to a case, you get basically 1 cent shipping per case if you're in the wine club. And just so you guys know, we're going to be about once a month, we're going to probably get together as a wine club and do a Zoom hangout on a Friday or a Saturday. And that will be exclusive content, and I will be putting together some special stuff for that. So there will be a few times probably during the sparkling isolation where I might not show up because I might be taking care of the wine club. And wine club members always get a better discount. We always make sure, even if we're doing these discounts, you'll still find a way to do a discount. And we are putting together sort of a subscription wine club for Miller Family Wine Club for the Miller Family Wine Company, just in case. And when you taste these wines and fall in love with these wines, you'll be able to get a regular shipment at incredible discounts. So that's that. Dominic asked, 2019 wine I made from Lodi grapes. I know from other winemakers that some made wine from the same grape, either grape or frozen must, and the results were all similar. I wanted to make 100% varietal of this variety, but I believe it needs to be blended. And for my and my friends' palates. Okay, so Lodi, huh? Now what, and then, yeah. And I don't know if I caught on to, was it Viognier? I don't know if I saw what your, and Don, let's see, he was asking, okay. And Glenn's and Ted's in the house. Anthony's in the house. Oh, it's a wine industry. It's a wine industry get together. I love it. Everyone in here, winos, winemakers. Welcome to Day Drinking with Wes Hagen. We are late for this. So 2018 Viognier. So this is 100% French Camp Vineyard, Paso Robles Highlands District. Highest elevation on average of any AVA of the 12 AVAs in Paso Robles. Fairly sandy, hard soils that have a ferrous clay subsoil. So the vines really struggle for the first 10 years. And after about 10 years, most of the roots break through the hard pan, get down to that ferrous clay where the water and the nutrients and the cation exchange capacity really is extremely high. All of a sudden, we're going to get, so for like the first 10 years, it's like a low vigor site. And then as the vines mature, it becomes a moderate to rather high vigor site. So we do everything we can. Oh, question early. Touriga Nacional. Yeah, Touriga. So the main grape that you would find in port wine. I will talk about Touriga a little bit, but I want to make sure that once, hey, Tom, it's good to see you. Once we jump into Viognier, though, I want to make sure, and speaking of Viognier, you can't really talk about Viognier without the Stoltman family and basically making some of the best Rhones out here, right? I mean, obviously, some of the original Rhone Rangers, Bob Lindquist, and folks at, Larry at Tercero, Larry Schaefer, all these guys are very committed to Rhone-style wines. You can argue probably Santa Barbara makes some of the best Rhone-styled wines outside of the Rhone, and we'll talk a little bit about where Viognier lives and what makes it great. You guys should know, so welcome to everyone who's come in. I'll welcome Michelle, the Sierra Wine Guy, Tommy Schmitz, Jolie is back in the house, probably the greatest fan of Santa Barbara County wine that I know of in Southern California. Josh, my friend from San Diego, is here. Michelle's back in the house. Welcome. Phil's back in the house. Bruce, Katie Kemp. We should all raise a glass to Katie because she puts up with my crazy, hey, buy this, buy that. Katie will take care of you. Katie's the one who sits behind a desk and basically processes all these orders and make sure you guys get your wine. So thank you, Katie. I know it's been a difficult week. You deserve a drink. I want to make sure that I haven't decided, but I want to get you something to show you just how grateful we are for all the work you did. So thank you, Katie. Folks over at my other Facebook page are raising a glass and saying thank you. So we appreciate it, Katie. And then after like 8 hours of dealing with orders and shipping, she comes and actually has the time to watch me talk about wine. That's amazing. So Keith's in the house, and John, one of our number one customers, Christy. All right, excellent. Okay, so let's get something in your glass, whatever you're drinking. Let's go ahead and raise a glass. Let's raise a glass for a moment to Steve Arrowwood, the founding winemaker and visionary from Montemar Cellars, another gentleman who grew up in Palos Verdes, California, such as I did. My father was actually his vice principal, I believe, at Rolling Hills High School or Palos Verdes High School. It's a loss. It really is. And one of the nicer guys in the industry. We have some incredibly nice people in this industry. I think we all know that the wine industry is where you go when you're sick of people being jerks and you want to come in and deal with a lot of people that also thought people were jerks in the law, in medicine, in business. The wine industry is where you make your money outside the wine industry, and you come into the wine industry to spend your money and to live with people that are living the dream. So I want to raise a toast to Steve Arrowwood in his memory, one of my friends, a kind man, and someone that I have a lot of love for, and I hope that I can find a way to take the love I had for that man and put it back into the universe and make a better world. How lucky we are. I wish you would have told us so we would have had some time, but that was your deal. That was your decision. I respect you for that. I'm just going to miss the hell out of you, bud. So here's to Steve Arrowwood. Cheers. Steve would have liked me to do that with 1977 Scarlet Begonias from the Grateful Dead ripping in the background, probably from 5/8/77, which is considered, in my estimation, the greatest Grateful Dead show of all time. But we're not going to talk about the Grateful Dead. We're going to talk about wine. We're going to talk about Viognier. So in my glass is Viognier. I would have to say that in general, Viognier might be one of the easiest varietals to nail aromatically because Viognier is showy. It's not delicate. It's not elegant. In general, I mean, in a cool climate, it can definitely have less of that sort of white perfumey aroma. When people are like, hey, you're talking about phenolic compounds and how grapes change, how the pyrazines become terpenes. People ask me, what do you mean by a terpene? I said, well, terpenes in white wine tend to smell a lot like jasmine and white flowers, or orange blossoms. Orange blossoms have amazing amounts of terpenes. So people always ask me, what do you mean by terpenes? I was like, well, you know the smell of Viognier. And they're like, oh, yeah. White flowers, perfume. Yeah, that really is, to me, the best indication and way to teach people what terpenes smell like. So the nice thing about this wine, as you know, I tend to be fairly, almost to a fault, a little bit more. I tend to make the style that sort of follows me from Clos Pepe to J.Wilkes is elegance and restraint. I don't let the wines get too ripe. So, but that said, this is the first 15 plus alcohol ABV wine, white wine I've ever made. I've made 15% Pinot Noirs in 2010 at Clos Pepe because of the heat spike. And I didn't want to water the wines back so much that they didn't taste like it was a ripe vintage with a heat spike. So I really, really, really wanted to make sure that this wine would appeal to Viognier drinkers. I didn't want to just like hamstring it just because that's my style. My style is to let the vineyard show, and I find overt ripeness in wine, and I don't use a percentage. It could be, I've had balanced wines from Brewer Clifton that were 16% and that didn't show the heat at all. I've had wines that fall apart that are 12.5% that didn't last like we thought they would. So in the end, when we were looking at this Viognier, right around 24.5 bricks is when we picked these grapes in the Paso Robles Highlands district at the French Camp Vineyard, one of the Miller's estate vineyards. The vines are maybe about 30 years old. And the problem with Viognier is if it gets ripe too fast, the sugar goes up, but the character and flavor of the wine doesn't. What do I love about Viognier? I love like the aromatics above threshold, but not like at the super slutty level. I want the wine to be complex. I want the wine to be aromatic. I want the wine to be bright. I want you to be able to smell it here. There it is, right there. So I mean, it's not a big Viognier. It's not a big Paso Viognier, but it is a Viognier made with sort of the craft perspective of a Santa Barbara County winemaker using Paso fruit that came in with excellent numbers. It ends up 15.2 alcohol. The acid is quite good. It is not, Viognier actually has a secondary sort of stylistic and structural element, and that is richness and unctuousness. Tends to the skins. It's a slip skin variety, so when you press it, the skin's like basically sheer. And what happens is it is almost like you macerate it for a couple hours. So Viognier is, by nature, when you press it, it gives a little bit of character as if you macerated and soaked the wines in the skins. So is it orange wine? No. Does it have slight elements of an orange wine even when it's not macerated? Yes, I would say it is. I would say it does. So it does have that little unctuousness, that oiliness, and which I really like with seafood. Peach skin, I think a lot of the aromatic compounds, for instance, Wine Folly lists tangerine, peach, mango, honeysuckle, and rose petal as the primary aromatic principles. And then they also say from cool to hot climate. In cool climates, you're going to get much more lime, flowers, and minerals. In a warm climate, such as Paso Robles, between Winkler Region 3 and a Region 4, about 3,000 growing degree days, you would expect apricot, rose, and vanilla. Normally, I would think of vanilla as a barrel-driven aromatic principle, or aromatic. It smells a little bit like peach ice cream. And now that I'm thinking vanilla, I'm getting that little kind of creamy ice, that creaminess in the nose. I never thought about vanilla in describing the aroma of this wine, but again, someone tells you, oh, it smells like those orange sickle popsicles. Oh yeah, well of course it does. You're just gonna say it. So they're saying that orange and orange blossom and lime really comes from the coolest climate where Viognier is made, and then as it warms up, you start getting more apricot. And then tropical flavors where it gets really warm, you're going to start getting characters of mango and pineapple. Where is Viognier grown outside of California? Well, obviously, it goes back at least to the 3rd century AD, where we have some primary source documentation of people talking about Viognier. Maybe there was close to where the Romans were moving the grapes. The Romans did a lot of trading with the Gauls, which were the original French people. The Gauls really weren't into wine, but they were into trading wine. So they would get amphorae. remember, if you fermented it, it's a kvevré, and if you carry wine in it, it's an amphore. So they were taking amphore, which were disposable, by the way, up the Rhone estuary from Italy, basically, and then trading all their wine, or selling the wine and trading the wine to the Gauls. The Gauls would load their boats in the Rhone estuary and then go up the Rhone to trade this rum and wine for what they really wanted. And what do you think the Gauls really wanted? They wanted honey and lumber. And they were an incredibly successful society that was continuing to build everywhere they go, and they would continually need cut lumber to build their houses, and they also preferred to drink mead. One of the areas, one of the large Roman villages around the area where Viognier traveled, because we're pretty sure it came from Italy because it is incredibly genetically, it's very closely genetically related. It's a cousin of Nebbiolo, and I want to make sure I get it right. It is also incredibly closely related to Frisia, which is a white grape variety that exists in the same area where Nebbiolo is grown as well, in the Langhe and Barolo, and that the Piemonte, in a beautiful place. So this village that I keep talking about, the Roman village of Vienne. So Vienne could have been Viognier, but generally there's a much sexier story that it is because of the difficulty in growing it and the difficulty in nailing the point where you're going to harvest it and make a great wine. A lot of people think it actually is via. It goes back to the Roman or the Latin via Gehenna. Via Gehenna, Viognier, via Gehenna, and via Gehenna means the road down to hell, basically. And the idea being Viognier is so difficult to grow and make that perhaps now I'm going to go with the Vienne because it seems more reasonable, and most ampelographers and grape scientists and historians agree that Vienna, but it's not the sexy story. The sexy story. Frisia, yes. The sexy story is that it is from the Latin for basically the road down to hell because of the difficulty in producing the wine. So there you go. It's likely Dalmatian in origin, but of course it does have a relationship to the two grapes in the Piemonte, so that would make sense if you follow how grapes move throughout the world from Asia Minor and the area over in the Dalmatian area. It would have moved across basically the Mediterranean, either by maybe by a Lebanese cedar boat with the Phoenicians or the Canaanites, came over basically from that area. It would have been moving down towards the Peloponnesia, up into the Italian peninsula, and then basically up the Rhone estuary, where there are stories about these grapes being carried by a famous Roman general up to the area of Gamay, up to Beaujolais, and that boat, which contained both Syrah and Viognier, being stopped and captured right near the real home of Viognier in the world. If Pinot Noir belongs in Burgundy, obviously Viognier belongs in the AOC known as Condrieu. Condrieu is a little sort of appellation in the Rhone in France, where only Viognier can be grown. No other grape can be grown. So I would say this one is fully aromatic. You're not going to stick your nose in it and go, it's not Viognier, but you're going to stick your nose in it and go, well, there's a little restraint in the nose. There's definitely a little bit of floral character, white flower character, high terpene content. I also always look for one tag that I found with Viognier when I was a drinker and a young wine judge, is this little hint of what I call cheddar rennet. The character of that almost like specific flavor that makes cheddar smell like cheddar also sometimes seems to be inherent in the flavor of Viognier. It's also one reason why I think Viognier is one of my favorite wines in the world to match with something that my wife loves to eat, and I'm famous for making a very, very high fat, high cheese content, which is mac and cheese, which is really cheese and mac for us because of the ridiculous amounts of cheese I use in my mac and cheese. It's beautiful with lobster and some poached butter. The nice thing about Viognier, it has some body to it, so it can match with wines that need a little bit of that mouth filling and full bodied character, which I really like. Another interesting story I read about Viognier today is that in 1965, the grape almost went extinct in Condrieu. In 1965, it got down to 7 acres of Viognier, and they were producing incredibly small, something like, I think like incredibly small amounts of the wine. It's nice that the grape came back. I believe that's up to something like 17,000 acres today. Predominantly, it is a French varietal, but Australia actually grows more Viognier than the United States. And then, believe it or not, the Cape wine down by the Cape in South Africa, we have a fair amount of Viognier as well. And we know of other places, but in California, we do a really, really good job with it. It's one of my favorite Viogniers I've ever had was actually one that Morgan Clendenin did with Yves Clairon, which was called Le Vin de Deux Mondes, the wine of two worlds, where they took equal amounts of Condrieu from Clairon and matched it, and then blended it with 50% of Sanford and Benedict, Santa Rita Hills Viognier. And they blended it into one wine, and it was about a $50 bottle. And we bought about 3 and wish we had bought about 12, so we could have laid those down for a good 10 years, because that wine had all the verve and the acidity and the mineral character from that cool climate and those diatomaceous soils that really, really exhibited what I thought was amazing character. So good job, guys. That was an absolutely delicious Viognier. I would put this in the right down where truth tends to lie, sort of in the middle ground. It's not over the top, sort of point-seeking Paso Viognier. It's not a Viognier that you would mistake for one grown in the Santa Rita Hills. It's not all limey and like super delicate, elegant, and vervy. It's got acid, it's got some good structure, but really this wine is much more about aromatics, flavor, and character. Viognier, I honestly think it's one of my favorite sort of cocktail wines. It's got so much flavor. It's a meal unto itself. It's got texture. It's got flavor. It's got aromatics. It's a little showy. It's hard for me not to love Viognier in all different styles. And I think Santa Barbara makes some of my favorite Viogniers in the world, and certainly Viogniers that I can. One thing you really will never find is cheap Viognier, because it's a low yielder, and it takes someone who's incredibly passionate and someone driven and maybe a little crazy to actually grow it and make it. So it's like one of those grapes like Chenin Blanc. It's not because you're out there trying to make $1 million. It's about that you are so driven and passionate about a varietal that you want to jump in and make something that makes people happy. And I think Viognier does make people happy. It's also a great wine to transition between off-dry white wines, wines that have a 1 or 2 or 3% residual sugar, like white Zinfandel, or maybe a Riesling, or something where you're only drinking off-dry wines. You're looking to get into dry wine and really get into it. Dry Viognier comes across as a little bit unctuous and sweet, because not only it has slightly higher alcohol, which would give you the glycerin and the glycerol, which is going to sometimes we talk about, especially in the diabetic community, alcohol sugar, because there are certain sugars that are actually alcohol-based that don't necessarily have carbohydrates, but they do have the sweet flavor. And glycerin and glycerol from alcohol are perceived basically on the sweetness flavor receptor on the papillae of your tongue. So alcohol and richness and unctuousness can come across as being sweet, although this wine may smell a little confectionery. It may come across as incredibly sort of bright, fruity, and come hither. You put it in your mouth, even though it's dry, it will give you a breadth that will approximate the flavor of a little bit of residual sugar. The actual residual sugar in this wine, I believe, is about 2.7 grams, which would give it 0.27 residual, not 2.7. That would be sweet. Most human beings, as I've said before, pick up residual sugar about 4 grams, a very good female sommelier could pick it up around 2 grams, and a very good male sommelier about 3 grams, because of the difference in the intensity of the papillae and the female tongue. Evolutionarily, men lose about 30% of their sense of smell compared to an average woman because of evolution. Men being evolutionarily much more important for them to be able to protect, fight, hunt, kill. Women being much more important to nurture, observe, as well as to be able to smell toxicity. If something gets past the man's physical presence, bad stuff happened back in the Chalcolithic and the Paleolithic, all the way back through the evolutionary period of a hominid's evolution. If something got past the nose of whoever was basically determining what was safe to eat for the tribe, you could have a serious problem with toxicity, poisoning, and death. So this is very, very important to recognize. Cheers, day drinking. We are all here. We are all breathing on this miracle of a planet. Isn't it amazing that we're all here together? I'm extraordinarily happy that you guys all came to join me. And I am really excited to share this 2018 J.Wilkes Viognier with you. As I said at the beginning, basically you can use the DD50 promo code. Go on to jwilkes.com or to the millerfamilywines.com. The DD50 still gets you a 50% discount on all of our other wines. The shipping has gone to $10 per case flat rate. The Viognier. So I wanted to make sure, and remember, my printer saved me. For some reason, it printed a blank page, so that was embarrassing. That was completely unnecessary, except to show that I was actually wearing pants. So here's my best memory of exactly how these promo codes are working. I actually have them listed on my Wes Hagen Facebook page, and I think I shared it to the J.Wilkes Facebook page. But it kind of works like this: that really the DD50 code gets you that $10 the $10 shipping in the J.Wilkes world, but all of the J.Wilkes wines are going to be automatically discounted to 20% for 1 to 6 bottles, 25% for 6 bottles and over, and then there are higher discounts for Wine Club, where we're trying to slowly and gently move some of you fine folk over to the J.Wilkes Wine Club, where we're going to be really working to make sure you guys get great discounts, great programs, great Zoom hangouts, great access to what I'm doing, meetups. I'm going to be traveling when everything is opening up again. I traveled almost every state in the United States over a couple of years. So even though you might not live anywhere near here, we're hoping that we can find ways, once the wine club gets to a certain level, that whenever I'm traveling to a certain region, maybe one night when I'm in New York, we can have a J.Wilkes Wine Club dinner or something like that in New York, Chicago, New Orleans, South Carolina, Nevada, you name it. We want to be with you. We want to have fun. Let's see. I would also love to know if you're drinking something interesting, or if you're drinking something completely mundane. I always like to know what people are drinking while we're doing this. And I'm going to continue to pour and drink this wonderful Paso Robles Highlands District 2018 Viognier. How lucky we are, because Viognier wants a moderate ripening pattern that allows flavor to develop with sugar, so the sugar doesn't go crazy and the aromatics don't catch up. How lucky we are to provide you the 2018 vintage of J.Wilkes Viognier first, because the 18 vintage was cooler throughout the Central Coast of California. And as a result, we were able to give a longer hang time at lower sugar to develop a wine that still has a fair amount of alcohol, but it has the impact, the unctuousness, and all the flavor development that you would expect from a wine that is getting up there. Absolutely. Yes, Nikki has got her Tito's with cranberry. So I am done talking about Viognier. I'm done talking really about Paso Robles Highlands District and the J.Wilkes 2018 Viognier. I encourage all of you to go over and check it out, and remind you guys that we are trying for Monday to have the 2016 Pinot Blanc and the 2016 Zinfandel into a single button on the website where you can order that extra case and get it at almost a 50% discount. And the price goes down even significantly more for Wine Club members. Let's see, it is 5:32. Is there anything I've neglected? What I'd love to do, which we haven't been able to do because I've been talking so damn much, is, oh, nice, Domino de Falcon Sanford Pinot. Sonia, that sounds absolutely delicious. So if you guys want to share anything with the group that are watching, we've got about 40 people between the two pages online, and I want to make sure if you have any questions about wine, beer, spirits, the Grateful Dead, whatever, you can ask me, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure. And let's see. Yes, Anne Marie, I agree. And yet again, another little toast to Steve. Miss you, buddy. And I did also post a revised at least a two week schedule for what we're going to be talking about, what wines we're going to taste. I was driving my company crazy because what I wanted to do is go 3 weeks ahead and then do a mixed case or a 6-pack of all the wines that I was doing for the next 6 days or whatever. The difficulty in putting that together and then changing it every week is a little bit hard for us to do in a time where we don't have that we're doing a really good job of keeping our DTC world together, but adding another layer on top of that would have been difficult. So we're just going to let you guys, we're going to give you guys a kick-ass discount. And besides once in a while, like giving you guys an option like these library wines, these 2016 wines, which I think will be really, really fun to get rid of the last couple cases. I'm actually going to get some too. That we want to make sure that you guys can just order whatever you want. So you guys can look at the calendar, at the schedule 10 days ahead of time and basically say, I think I would love to taste the 2018 Pinot Noir the next time Wes breaks that out and tastes it again. And what we'll find probably as we continue this, into the next month or two, that'll do it 5 days a week. We'll probably take Saturday off maybe Saturday off. And then, but most importantly, we will taste some of those same wines again and give a little bit of a review. And that'll give you guys the opportunity to get some of these wines in your house, in your cellar, in your glass. So when we taste them together, you can ask questions. Hey, I taste this. Is there something in the winemaking process? Is that barrel driven? Is that terroir driven? We can talk about vineyards. We can talk about, Biencido. We can talk about Solomon Hills. We can talk about some of the vineyards we buy from outside of the Miller family portfolio. We can talk about French Camp. All of these great vineyards are going to be very important in this discussion. All right. Lynette is in the house. Oh, dude, John, sharp cheddar all day long. I really like the cheeses that I used to get cheeses at our local Costco. And they had the Cabot extra aged white cheddar, I think a vintage white cheddar. It's like a $15 block. I really like that cheese. I also like the Rembrandt. It's like a 15-month aged Gouda with a little crystalline character. Their goat cheese is good. You can get some decent brie there, maybe some manchego. They also have little kind of a built-in cheese plate that has some really nice cheeses, including some amazing Vermont cheese too. But I would say with Viognier, I would say mac and cheese with a little extra sharp cheddar and a couple extra slices of cheese in there to make sure it's really cheesy and rich. It does really, really nice job with cheese, mac and cheese. See what else? What other cheeses? A little bit of apricot. If you're going to put a little bit of apricot jam, a lot of people like fig jam or a little apricot jam, something a little sweet in the middle of a cheese plate with some charcuterie and some cheese. Maybe a little mustard, some Marcona almonds, and then maybe a little dollop of sweet jam or jelly. Preserves. I would think a little apricot preserves, on a cracker with some sharp cheddar cheese. If I'm going to deconstruct the flavor compounds that I would recognize that we're going to bridge with the flavor compounds of Viognier in a perfect food and wine matching, that's the way I would think about it scientifically. And then I would just say, the hell do I want to eat with Viognier? I did a dish last week that was it was almost like it was a dish shown to me by Alfonso Curti, who's the chef and owner of Uliveto Trattoria Uliveto here in Orchid. And he made this dish for me because we were talking about sausage, and I didn't really like the kind of sausage that he was putting together with his white beans. And so he made me basically like scampi with white beans, sort of almost like a scampi cassoulet. And Viognier, hello, that sounds absolutely awesome. So lots of stuff that'll match with Viognier. As far as flavor matches and food matches, I think that, you know, even though you can certainly drink it as a cocktail, I would say it's perfect as the last white wine before you move to red in a winemaker multi-course dinner of different matching. It gets our mouth ready with that unctuousness and all of that beautiful flavor and character. There's not a lot of white wines you can go to after Viognier if you want there to be sort of a ramping up of flavor and intensity. All right. Camembert sounds good. Andrew, welcome. Can't wait until we can get back on the golf course. That's going to be fun. Oh, baked brie with orange marmalade or apricot jam. Yeah, I would say that would be beautiful with a Viognier. Stoltman Roan's getting some call outs. Tom Stoltman shows up and gets some love from Phil back east. And Larry's as well. But let's talk more about Steve because he showed up. Beckman, you know, I've always loved Beckman's wines. And, you know, I think you would have to probably, as far as my favorite Rhone producers, you know, I mean, there's so much great Rhone wine being produced in Santa Barbara County, especially even down in Santa Barbara. So, I mean, how lucky are we? And of course, you got to give Bob Lindquist, one of the original Rhone Rangers, a lot of credit as well. You know, so much good wine. And Beckman's doing a great job too. And Michelle, thank you so much for being here. Let's see. Cold Heaven. Yes, indeed, Mark Simmons. I completely and totally agree with you. Yeah, John, that's a good question. I mean, you know, cigars. I remember, you know, eating in Paris the first time we went into a Michelin star restaurant for one of the kind of important meals that we had over there, and the table next to us at the Tour Legent were smoking cigars between each meal, and they were drinking they probably drank $12,000 worth of wine that night. They were drinking like 50s and 60s, you know, first growths. They were drinking Grand Cru, and you know, they were drinking like 61 port and like, you know, 77 ports afterwards, just, you know, choking down a Cohiba. And I like a good cigar playing golf once in a while. I used to actually have a humidor, and I used to smoke maybe a cigar a week. Now maybe I smoke 2 a year, and I don't keep them. I rely on the kindness of strangers and all my good people. So cigars and wine, yes. I mean, I like a cigar at the end of the night. After, especially if I'm going to be drinking wines that require my palate to understand delicacy, because certainly once you've smoked a cigar, I do think the palate is affected, and I never feel bad smoking a cigar when I smoke it. I always feel it in the morning. I won't say exactly what it feels like happened in my mouth, but it generally is not a pleasant idea. And even brushing one's teeth before one goes to bed, sometimes the cigar wins. But that's a good subject for a different day. Little cigars. And someone is drinking a lovely Story of Soil Gruner Veltliner 2018 Fiddlesticks. Yes, Santa Rita Hills Gruner. It's awesome. There's also some Gruner, I think, that Kathy Joseph planted over just on the edge of Lompoc. And I don't know whether that vineyard is actually within the Santa Rita Hills, but it is definitely in a beautiful, cool climate place, very close to the Santa Rita Hills. All right, we got an Anderson Valley late harvest Gewürztraminer. I'm assuming that's probably Navarro. Probably one of my favorite producers in the world. Love me some Navarro. Talk about quality to price ratio. Kessler Hawk, Ohana Pinot. Very nice. Very Highway 246. Thank you. Yes, of course. Whether she said Highway 246, you know, because Bruno would say that we should have broken up the Santa Rita Hills right away into the north and the south corridors in 2 separate AVAs, and Highway 246 and Santa Rosa Road. Oh, we got another Story of Soil. Very nice, popular wine tonight. All right, so Keith is asking a very important question, and I owe him $20 for being a proper shill. And that is, how do I order a case of the Pinot Blanc and Zin? That will be, we have not yet put the 16s on the website because we decided to focus the end of the week to get everyone's wine orders shipped and out before we take the time to redo the website and make sure that the 16 Pinot Blanc and the 16 Zinfandel come together in a beautiful case. So Keith, thank you for asking. You will see that with any luck Monday. Monday it will go live before we do this. And I think we'll have enough wine, kind of looking at how much wine we've been selling through this program, which has actually been significant. Thank you guys all. We should have at least enough wine to cover everybody. And I will make sure that we are going to keep a couple cases for the tasting room. So I will let you know. My guess is it'll last 3 days. If we sell maybe 4 or 5 cases a night, if we sell 10 or 12 cases the first night, if there's a run on it, it could be one night. But I think we definitely have enough wine to last for a couple days. And then when it's getting a little bit, short on supply, I will let you know, make a last call, and whatever's left after the last call, I will keep for the library, for winemaker dinners, as well as having that wine available. And by the way, for library wines in the tasting room, we usually actually add $10 onto their retail price. So the 16 would normally be $30, and the Zin is actually in current release because we have another Zin coming up, but it's not quite sold out. So that's a wine. The Pinot Blanc was the fun find, and I'm really looking forward. I've got 16 Pinot Blanc in the house, and I'm going to taste it with you on Monday, along with the 16 Zin. So I will give you an honest appraisal of exactly where that 16 Pinot Blanc is. And it's also one of the first years we started using DM closures and corks. So I guarantee those wines will be tight. The closure's tight. There's not going to be a lot of oxidation. There's not going to be a lot of movement of gas through the pores of the cork. So I think these wines, last time I tasted the 16, it was absolutely pristine. So we're in really, really good shape on that. Check just a couple more comments. And remember, if you do want to suggest a subject for this, you can write me an email at whagen@jwilkes.com, or you can just put your comment or your ideas here in the comments. I do check the comments the next morning, and usually 24 hours after, to make sure that I haven't any questions, and I've done my proper social media stuff of liking all of your glorious and wonderful comments. We've got, Gruner and Gamay. And John loves his, I'm not going to say the American pronunciation. I will use the Dutch pronunciation, Gouda cheese. I've been told that's the correct pronunciation of Gouda. I just read 1,000 Autumns of Jacob de Zoet and learned all about Dejima and the trading patterns of the Dutch East India Company, as well as Japan, when the Dutch were Japan's only window into the Western world, right as the Dutch Empire was falling apart between 1695 and about 1720. David, welcome. Blue cheese, yeah. I've got an interesting thing with blue cheese. Blue cheese and wine to me normally doesn't work. I love a good aged Stilton with a port. That, back when I used to be able to drink sweet wine, that was something I really enjoyed. The interesting thing, though, to me is that normally blue cheese, especially intense blue cheese, like Danish blue cheese, it's just like so tangy, it's over the top. Blue cheese to me makes most wines taste corked. It coats my tongue and does something to like kind of make almost numb my flavor receptors, and I have a hard time tasting wine with blue cheese unless it is something like a Stilton and port. So I find Camembert works. There are some mild blue cheeses that work incredibly well with wine and cheese pairing, but in general, my personal feeling is I normally avoid blue cheese with wine matching, but that does not mean that if it's delicious to you that you have a better palate than I do. So that is all well and good, and I would definitely do that. All right. Maestro Scheit, Dry Creek, Zinfand, the Lencioni. Is it Lencioni or Lencioni? A C or a double C in various places in Italian is one of the most confusing linguistic devices I've ever seen. But it looks like you're drinking some Dry Creek Zin, which is an incredible place to grow Zinfandel. Love, love, love it. Also love Dry Creek for 100% Cabernet, as well as Pope's Valley and Knights Valley. I think Sonoma, 100% Cabernet. There's no place in the world that makes better 100% Cabernet. Amazing. Thursday is the NFL draft. Can we do a Wes Hagen wine draft? Well, sure. You can draft any of these wines as long as, just like the NFL teams, you're willing to pay for them and have them come out to do a skills test right in your glass. So of course you can do a draft. All these wines I think are quite draftable. Oh, you put an extra C on it, so now it's Lincioni. Nikki would probably know. What's the oldest Viognier I've ever tasted? Oh my gosh. I've got a great story about Viognier that I totally forgot. Bill Hargrove, you are my hero. So I went back to Paris in 2001, in February 2001 for my honeymoon. So I got married on 9900. So I would always, it'd be easy to remember my anniversary, and I can easily remember how many years I've been married. 20, by the way, almost. So liberal arts math is really easy when it starts with a 00. So we went to, and Steve and Kathy Pepe were incredibly supportive. We were employees at that point. We were working mostly for sweat equity, so we didn't have a lot of money to go to Paris and spend a lot of money. So they were incredibly kind to really help us have some experiences in Paris that we couldn't have by myself, including the pinnacle of what we did with Food and Wine, which was to do a full Food and Wine pairing dinner at Alain Ducasse in Paris. And if you've never been to Alain Ducasse, you got to do it at least once in your life. It's pretty amazing and incredible. So here we are at Alain Ducasse, sitting down, looking over the menu, and the prefix included a crab consomme, I believe, foamed, served in the upside down body of a crab that was laying on sea salt. And the wine they chose, the sommelier, rock star sommelier. In fact, I think some people would actually have all the waiters like sign the menus, because the waiters at a 3-star Michelin restaurant are kind of rock stars themselves. But to get back to the story, we were having this, it was all foamy. It was kind of like molecular gastronomy meets perfect French cuisine. This beautiful French, consomme, foaming consomme of crab soup, and they matched it with a 76 Condrieu. And to this date, my wife has a very delicate palate. She likes generally French whites and reds from anywhere, but she is very picky about her whites, and she's never been a Viognier fan. In fact, I would always make her taste the Viogniers. She never found a Viognier she loved. She always found them too oily, too rich, and too perfumey to be a wine. She appreciates delicacy. She probably has a super palate. She's very, 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 very sensitive nose. So we just signed on to the 7-course menu or whatever, and each course was matched with a wine, and most of these wines were at least 20 to 25 years old. So the consomme, I think, was course 3 maybe with the Viognier, with the Condrieu, and the crab came, they pulled the things, and here's this upside down crab with this foamy soup on this perfect plate, and we're all just like, wow, man, look at that. And this golden Viognier in the glass, and it definitely looked like Sauternes at that point. And the aromatics were nutty, creamy, with a little bit of perfume left, with a little of that terpene that just wouldn't die, little hint of kind of like faded kind of white flowers, like the last day you can smell the orange blossoms in Redlands, California, or like that whiff. Is that jasmine, or is the jasmine all gone? It's like on the edge of perception. And my wife had the consomme, had the soup, and we both agreed it was one of the better food and wine matches we'd ever had. And so the waiter came back and said, what did you think of the match of the Condrieu with the crab? I said, well, being sort of the kind of like dismissive jerk I was when I was a young husband, I'm like, well, you'll have to ask my wife because she really does not like Viognier. And she looked at me and says, it's not Viognier, it's Condrieu. That was the moment, right? The waiter lost it, I lost it, and I realized at that moment that my wife is a wine geek, but doesn't wear it on her sleeve. She knew. It wasn't really about the varietal. It was about the moment and place and time of Condrieu. And Viognier, it was almost like when I talked to Alberto Villain about Pinot Noir one time, he said something like, oh, no, Pinot Noir doesn't exist. Pinot Noir is a ghost. It's like, what did he say? He said it was like Rosebud in Citizen Kane. That Pinot Noir is an idea, and Pinot Noir is a vessel. And the last thing he said, I'll never forget, Pinot Noir is a vehicle for expressing terroir in Burgundy. And it does some interesting things in the New World, I think is what he finished that with. So yeah, she nailed it. So we always have that joke, when she says, it's Condrieu, what I realize is I'm being dismissive to how she understands the world, and that she knows a hell of a lot more than I give her credit for. So I'll offer a toast up to my beautiful wife as well. So I'm gonna call it a night. I think I got and basically welcomed everyone and made sure everyone feels. It looks like my blood sugar is going a little bit low, so I need to go get some sugar into my system or some nice complex carbohydrates. Think about what I'm going to cook for dinner, what I'm going to drink with dinner. It's all exciting stuff as we transgress and move slowly from day drinking to evening drinking, or where you are might be day drinking straight to night drinking. The sun's going down, which means we can move to spirits, according to the world, according to Bender and Archer, two of my favorite hard drinking animated characters in Futurama and in Archer the comic, in the cartoon. So I really, really hope that all of you had a good time. Remember how we finish the show every night, and that is, wherever you are, love the wine you're with. If you can't be with the wine you love, and love the people you're with. If you're not with any people, reach out, because there's lots of people that really want to be part of who you are and what you're doing. And then, as we always say, make sure you think about someone in your family, someone in your neighborhood, and someone in your community that might need some support, and ask yourself, how can I creatively support the people that need the support right now? As I mentioned earlier, I want to close again with one last toast to Steve Arrowwood from Montemar. We'll miss you, buddy. So glad to have you as part of the Santa Rita Hills group, Firmament, and the soul of Santa Rita Hills will always be influenced by the way I remember you and those beautiful Grateful Dead tunes blasting at your tasting room. You're with Jerry, dude. So it's all well and good. Say hi to us, say hi for us, and wherever you are, make sure you realize every breath on this planet's a miracle, and that we'll be together again tomorrow at 5 o'clock. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to be talking about something that I almost have to bite my lip. I'm going to be pouring for you tomorrow a bourbon barrel Cabernet Sauvignon. And I know what some of you are saying. The last thing I ever thought I'd heard Wes Hagen say is that he was responsible for the production of a bourbon barrel Cabernet or bourbon barrel Cabernet. But you'll have to realize my boss, Nicholas Miller, is probably has the greatest collection of brown liquor, whiskey with an E and without an E, predominantly based on bourbon, than anywhere in the Central Coast and maybe in California. My guess is he has somewhere like 300 bottles of brown liquor in his house. It's an excellent place to visit if you like to taste whiskey. So he, because of his love of whiskey and his travel into Bourbon County and his relationships with a lot of these producers that he buys a lot of great whiskeys from, we actually hooked up with a collaboration with Buffalo Trace, and we got a bunch of Buffalo Trace barrels, and we made some. Yes, he does. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how I decided how much in a bourbon barrel cab, how much bourbon flavor is too much, how you control that, how I kept myself from wanting early on to adding a little bit of bourbon to the wine because I never smelled it until it was bottled. We'll talk about all that stuff and talk a little bit about the 2017 J.Wilkes Bourbon Barrel Cabernet, Paso Robles, California, what it means, what we did with it, and and we'll taste it. We'll talk about it, and you can make fun of me if you want. So I had a great time tonight. I hope you learned something about Viognier, a grape that may mean the path through the road to hell, as someone actually, don't think I didn't see someone correct me over there. I try not to, I try to go off the cuff and not have too many notes for these things, so I have to remember them. Remember, just one last thing you'll remember. Remember, we remember 40% of what we read, 60% of what we read and take notes on, but we remember 90% of that which we teach another human being. So the best way you can remember anything is to teach. So let's get out there and teach wine, have fun, or not teach wine, put some wine in the glass, get it in our mouth, and let's shut the hell up and get our drink on, because that, in the end, is what day drinking is all about. Cheers, everyone. Have a fantastic night. And make sure to spread the love all around this wonderful world. See you soon. See you tomorrow night, 4:45. I'll be here. There I go off day drinking again. Wes Hagen. I'm the winemaker for J.Wilkes Wines and the brand ambassador for